Jeremiah is not doing it for his own good. He's getting no gain and no benefit for what he's saying to the people, right? He's not writing a book and getting paid all these fortunes, right? He's not divining for people, so they're coming in and they're responding to him. He's going to the heads of the temple. He's going to the king, and he's saying, to his own detriment, these horrible things are going to happen because you are turning away from the Lord. And for that, he gets put in stocks and he gets warned, don't do this again. Hey everyone, welcome back to Bible 365. I am your host, Kathy Carter, and today is day 219. On your calendar, it's August 6th, and our reading today is Jeremiah 19 through 20 and Daniel 1. So we're starting a new book, another prophet. If you have never been with me before, I'm reading through the Bible in 365 days. So I'm taking 1 year to read the Bible. I am using the 1 year chronological Bible reading plan. So I'm reading through it historically, right? Chronologically through the Bible. And I'm using it from oneyearbibleonline.com. So you would go on there, download one of their free chronological Bible reading plans. And it's a printable and you can use it with your own Bible. So if you have never been with me before, I always say I would love for you to go back to the beginning, back to Genesis 1. I started on January 1st. But if you are here and you just want to check it out and see what it's about, I read through the Bible. I share. I don't read it all the verses, but I read some. I share my testimonies. I share what I think is going on at the time, how that matters today, why it matters to people who follow Christ, things like that, just to kind of get us centered and back to Christ, right? Like the whole point is to bring us back to the Lord, back to knowing who it is we follow, how we follow them, why we follow him. Not them, him, how we follow him, why we follow him, what is good about him, right? So all of those things that I think we, as people who say that we love him and we have faith in him, I think these are all things that are really important for us as those who say we believe. So today is, we are coming to this time. I'm not going to go too far in. I know I say that every day and I go too far in, but we are coming to the time where the nation of Judah is going to be overthrown by Babylon. So Jehoiakim is the king. And if I, hopefully right here, I'm going to have a list of the kings, right? I'm hoping to have a picture with a list of the kings and where we are now with Jehoiakim being the king and how we got there. Because at this point, after today, both nations are going to be overrun and taken over and brought into slavery and all these other things. And so we're going to see where that sort of that kingship has ended. So today we begin in Jeremiah 19. Jeremiah is a prophet during the time of Jehoiakim, and it's in the low 600s. The year is like 605, 604, 605 BC, so about 600 years before Christ. And so the Lord is talking to him, and then he is sharing what the Lord is saying to the people of Judah. And as always, it's not going very well. The people are frustrated, they're angry because they don't want to hear what it is that he has to say. Because mostly these prophets are coming in and they're saying, you guys are doing really wrong and you're not following the Lord. And so the Lord is going to destroy this nation. And they saw it happen to Israel. And so they really should be prepared. And you would think they would be listening with like extra super ears on, but they're not. So let's see what they have to say. He says, this is what the Lord says. So the Lord speaks directly to Jeremiah. And he says, go buy a clay jar from a potter. You buy this jar. You're going to take along some of the elders of the people and some of the priests, right? The elders of the priests and the people. And you're going to take them with you. You're going to go out to the valley of Ben Hinnom near the entrance of the potsherd's gate. There proclaim these words that I'm going to tell you. Hear the word of the Lord, kings of Judah, people of Jerusalem. This is what the Lord says. I'm going to bring disaster on you. This is nothing new, nothing they have not heard before, things that they should be understanding that God has been saying at this point. And he's saying it's because they have forsaken me and they've turned to other gods. Again, like this message we've heard over and over and over again from Isaiah, from Jeremiah, from Josiah, from Micah, from Micah, from Nahum, right? Like all of these prophets at this point have been saying all these things over and over again. And so he says they're building high places, they're doing all these things. And it says, beware, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when people are not going to call this place Topheth or the valley of Ben Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. So again, these are not small words that he's using. This is not like where he would be saying, uh, a couple families are going to be taken, or this little town is going to have some trouble, or there's going to be a financial crisis, right? He's calling it the valley of slaughter. So once again, these words that I like to use, he's coming in with mass destruction. It doesn't mean that every single person is going to die. We see that clearly, that they're not going to all die. But he's going to destroy the nation. He's going to destroy the area. He's going to destroy their way of life. They've been living up to this point in a certain way, right? Like certain financial freedoms, certain choices that they're allowed to make, certain people they're allowed to do business with, like all of these things. And that's not going to be anymore, right? So they're going to be overrun, they're going to be taken over, and it's going to be the valley of slaughter. He says, I will devastate this city and make it an object of horror and scorn. All who pass by will be appalled and will scoff. And then he says, ready like this, it's going to get real ugly. I will make them eat the flesh of their sons and daughters, and they will eat one another's flesh, because their enemies will press the siege so hard against them to destroy them. I just want to bring up, and it's a movie, and I can't think of the movie, but I just want to bring up, there was this movie back in I think it was around the 40s. Boy, I come to you with like no information, but it just kind of registered in my head, where in some areas in Russia, like right outside of Russia, where they were starving to death and nobody was told. Like the people in the city knew where all the money was. Like they knew everything that was bad that was going on, because they weren't feeding them. They weren't sending any food. They were freezing. And they knew, but like the world didn't know. So like we over here in the United States and over in all of the other main areas in Europe, and right, they didn't realize all of these things that were happening. And this is a true story, where they sent a reporter to Russia to go report on all these things, and he was supposed to come back and essentially say, oh yeah, Russia's treating their people really well. And what he found out is he took this train and he went into some of the towns, and what he found out is they were actually eating their people. Like they were, because they were starving. And so when they were starving, what was happening is like someone in the family would die, and so that the people would actually put them in the snow to keep them in such a way where they would be able to eat them every day. Like this was something that was actually happening with real people. Like, we don't in our nation right now understand any of that kind of devastation, right? We live in a land of more than abundance. Like everywhere we are in our nation, sorry, everywhere we are in this nation, there is abundance, even when there's not a lot of money. Like food banks are overrunning with a lot of food. So a lot of times when there isn't food, it's not because there's no opportunity for food, but because there's some deliberate reasons why they're not having food. So I don't want to point out that there's some of that, but overwhelmingly we have an abundance of food, right? We're not in this area where we're actually starving to death. And so I just want you to kind of picture that's what this is going to look like. This is going to be a time where they are starving to death. And so they will be eating people that they knew, right? Like that they knew they're going to, and some say their kids, some say, right, their friends, their neighbors, whatever it might be. This is the kind of poverty they're going to be under, because they did not follow the Lord, because the Lord says this is the time of punishment. Verse 10, it says, then break the jar, right? So remember, Jeremiah went and got this clay pot. Break the jar while those who are with you are watching, and say to them, this is what the Lord Almighty says. I will smash this nation and this city just as this potter's jar is smashed and cannot be repaired. Right? So I've said this all throughout what we've been showing. He likes to make a visual for the rest of us to see all through time, right? So we know what he says is true, right? So remember, Isaiah is one that really comes to mind. Isaiah had to walk around naked for 3 years, right? Because he prophesied how Egypt was going to be coming in naked and in shackles. And so that's what Isaiah did. Isaiah represented that, right? I'm even going to say through like the flood, these were all representations of the things that we're going to continue to see in the future, right? So he likes to, I think, do something very literally, and then we're going to see how that ripples in the pond through the rest of time. All right, so anyway, so he smashes the jar. He says they're going to bury the dead until there's no more room. There's going to be so many in this area that there's going to be no more room. This place is going to be a place where no one lives for a while. Now, moving on to Jeremiah 20, it says, when the priest, Pashur, hears these things, he goes and takes Jeremiah and puts him in chains. Right? He puts him in the stocks at the upper gate of Benjamin at the Lord's temple. So Jeremiah heard from the Lord, goes and tells the people to protect themselves. Right? Like, this is, Jeremiah is not doing it for his own good. He's getting no gain and no benefit for what he's saying to the people. Right? He's not writing a book and getting paid all these fortunes, right? He's not divining for people, so they're coming in and they're responding to him. He's going to the heads of the temple. He's going to the king, and he's saying, to his own detriment, these horrible things are going to happen because you are turning away from the Lord. And for that, he gets put in stocks, and he gets warned, don't do this again. Essentially what they're saying is don't come and try and protect the nation of Judah. Shut your mouth, right? Or we're going to do this to you again. So he says, it says, the next day when Pashur released him from the stocks, Jeremiah says, the Lord's name for you is no longer Pashur, but it's terror on every side. So he's like, I'm going to let you watch all of this stuff that happens, right? Like, he's going to be alive still, and he's going to watch while he put Jeremiah in stocks for what he said. Jeremiah is like, you're going to see the proof in the pudding. You're going to see all of these things that come to pass. He said, and then you're going to be taken away to Babylon. You're going to go into exile, and there you're going to die and be buried, and you and all your friends who have prophesied lies. So he's going to people who are prophesying, and it is all lies. Oh, everything's going to be good. God is on your side. You're going to be blessed, right? He's like, all of that is lies, and you're all going to be punished for it. And now he goes into like a little bit of a lament. Like, he's complaining a little bit. Again, I'm going to say understandably so. He keeps getting physically assaulted. He says, you deceived me, Lord. You overpowered me and prevailed. I'm ridiculed all day long. I feel for him, right? The Lord continues to send him out. And here he goes. He's like, I'm proclaiming, like, I cry out violence and stuff to these people. And then they're shunning me. Right? They're insulting me. They're reproaching me all day. I'm sure everyone hated to be around him because he was preaching doom and gloom all the time. And he says, but if I say I'm not going to mention a name, his word is like a fire inside me. So he feels like he can't even keep it in. He can't not speak. Right? It has to come out. He has to let them know. Which for me, I feel like, again, it's a loving thing that he's doing, letting him know all of these things. He's like, and I hear whispering on every side. They're like, let's denounce him. All of his friends, right? And then he's like, perhaps he's going to be deceived, and then we're going to prevail over him and take revenge. So they're all plotting their revenge on Jeremiah. And then I like this section because it says, but, I love a good but the Lord is with me like a mighty warrior, so my persecutors will stumble and not prevail. So I'm going to go through these horrible things, but I know that the Lord is with me. Right? He says, Lord Almighty, you who examine the righteous and probe the heart and mind, let me see your vengeance on them. For to you I have committed my cause. So he's been honest, open, upfront with him, and he's done all the things that the Lord has asked. Sing to the Lord. Give praise to the Lord. He rescues the life of the needy from the hands of the wicked. So he's just giving, even though he's upset with God for him having to go through all of this, he still recognizes the worthiness and the holiness and the goodness that the Lord is. And he says, sing to him, right? Sing and lift up praises to the Lord because he's good. But then he curses himself. Curse the day that I was born. Curse my mother's womb. He's like, for he didn't kill me in the womb with my mother as my grave. So he's just sad over his life. I just can't imagine that it is just a hard life that he's living. Why did I ever come out of the womb to see trouble and sorrow and to end my days in shame? 2 notes on this. One, obviously I keep talking about how his life is really difficult. What he has to do by speaking against his own people, right? Against his community. We all love community. We all want to be loved and accepted by people. Like, that's just, I don't care if you're the most isolationist person in the entire world. No, I'm off the grid. I don't there's something in you that desires to be loved by other people, right? Like we all, it's innate, it is in our nature. We want to be part of something. We want to be in a friend group, even if we want to say no to our friend group. Like, I know you invited me out and I don't really want to go because I don't want to leave my house, but I still want you to want me, right? I still want you to love me. I still want you to invite me next time, because there's something in our nature that says that we want and need to be in community. I think that's the way God made us. So even though he's feeling like he's not, right? He's isolated. Everyone hates him. No one wants to be with him. Even though he's feeling this way, he says, on top of that, right? He says, to see trouble and sorrow and to end my days in shame. On top of that alone, right? He's also going to see the nation be taken by Babylon. He sees it before it comes. He knows it's coming, and then it comes. So he's also living in a war depraved land, right? And so it's not just that he's watching it come, he's prophesying to them, they're yelling at him for prophesying it, and then there's this battle. So to imagine that I know that this battle is coming, I can see this battle coming, I've been told by the Lord, everyone's yelling at me for it, and then it comes and I have to live through that. Like, it's just a tough life for Jeremiah. And for, I guess for us, for me, like, we always, and rightly so, right? We point to Jesus, but a lot of times we'll say, well, Jesus was God, right? Jeremiah was a man. He was a man sent by the Lord to do a job. I think the Lord has jobs for all of us. And more often than not, those jobs are not going to be easy jobs, right? It's not going to be like I love teaching, right? I love, and again, fitness instructor. I love it, right? That's probably not his primary job for me, right? It's probably not like, I'm going to stick you in this nice little place where you're comfortable and you're happy and everything goes really well, right? Like, he's probably going to put some challenges in my way. He's going to make maybe my teaching difficult for me, right? In some ways. So things like that. And, or he's going to call me out of whatever it is that I am doing to do something else that is not in my comfort zone. Because the Lord really calls us in some ways to struggle against our comfort, right? Our natural, inborn, really wanting to be comfortable. Oh, I went too far. All right, so moving on, because I want to move on to Daniel from here, because that's how he, oh no, he doesn't finish it there. Yeah, well, he does finish it there. And we're ending Jeremiah in that area. Now we're going to Daniel. So Daniel's a new guy. He's also a prophet, and we're going to find out a little bit about him. The 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, comes to Jerusalem and takes it over, besieges it, right? And the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand. So he takes the king, right? And then he takes some of the stuff from the temple. He takes a lot of the treasures, and he brings them and he puts them in his own temple of his own gods. Then the king ordered Ashpenaz, which is his chief official, to bring in some of Israelites. These are the qualifications of the people that he wants, the Israelites that he wants to serve in his kingdom. Young men, no physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. So these have to be their best of their best of their best. He's not having any schlubs. He doesn't want any old people. He doesn't want us. We're too old. He doesn't want women. I'm the wrong gender. He doesn't want kids, right? So he wants young, able-bodied, handsome, smart, eager to learn men. So he is looking for their best people, bringing them into his kingdom. A couple things can come from that, right? Once they're ingrained in his kingdom, right? And this is one of the things that I think we always love to do. We love to teach people young, right? We want them to do gymnastics young. I'm watching the Olympics. Olympics is on. We want them to do gymnastics young, because right then we will slowly, as their bodies start to grow, they're going to grow into more of a gymnast body, right? That alone, and the way they eat will be more of a gymnast diet, and then right, all of their speech will be around all these gymnastics things, right? Like, so we ingrain them really young for really good purposes, right? Because we want to develop them the way that we think that they should go. We as Christians do the same thing, right? As parents, we develop our children in the way that we think that they should go, because we want them to be followers of the Lord, right? I want all of my children to be followers of the Lord. So when I give lessons, my lessons are usually based strictly from the Bible, always through the eyes of Jesus, right? Through the filter and the lens of Jesus, because that's the way I want my kids to go. So when we solve arguments, that's kind of what we do. I tell you this because that's brilliant what he's doing, right? He's bringing in young, able-bodied, eager to learn, smart men, and he's going to slowly ingrain them into the lifestyle of Babylon. So now Israelites have been taken out of their land where they were surrounded by all people of Israel, right? And now they've been brought into the king's land. They've been brought into all of this finery, right? Because they're like in the king's quarters. This isn't, they're not cleaning the toilets. They're sort of a little bit higher on that. And so he's ingraining them to be Babylon. So now these Israelites are being trained to be Babylon, right? I think that's his point and purpose. And it would be understandably so. I'm not saying it's a good thing, right? Because we want Israelites to follow the God of Israel, but that's what would make sense that that's what they're doing. So he wants all of this for them. And then he's going to train them, right? Here we go. He's going to train them for 3 years. So he's going to take his time. He's in no rush, training them for 3 years. Among those chosen were some from Judah: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. 4 Israelite men. The chief official then gives them new names. So on top of everything else, they are being trained to be men of Babylon, and they are getting new Babylonian names. So now everything about them is changing, right? If that's what they're trying to do. Their names are Belteshazzar, which is Daniel, and then we got Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. So those are our 4 men that we're going to see and we're going to meet. So it says Daniel resolves not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. I'm assuming because it's not, I'm going to use the expression, it's not kosher. It's not what they would have been allowed to eat. So maybe it's pork, or maybe it's shellfish, right? Or maybe it hasn't been, it has hooves that it's not supposed to have, right? Well, whatever it might be. And he says, you know what, we're going to abstain from that, and we're just going to eat vegetables. But he doesn't say, no, we're going to abstain from that. What he does is he asks. He says, I'm afraid, he says to the chief, he says, but Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. So he submitted to this official in the kingdom, and he said, can we not do this? And the guy says, well, I'm afraid the king is going to see that you guys aren't really doing well. And so Daniel says, listen, test us. Just give us 10 days. If we're not doing better than them, you can make us eat all the royal food. But if we are, then, we could just stick to the vegetables. So it says at the end of 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and wine and gave them vegetables instead. To these 4 young men, God gave knowledge, understanding of all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. So Daniel gets this sort of like extra, right? So now Daniel understands visions. They've all been blessed with knowledge and wisdom and all of these good things, but Daniel also gets visions. The king talked with them. So it said they presented to Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them, and he found none equal to these 4 guys. So like these guys were the tops of the tops. In every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters in his whole kingdom. So these guys are above and beyond. Look at how the Lord is blessing these guys, even in a kingdom that is not their own. Think about how you may or may not live in a kingdom that is not the Lord's. And how are you a blessing in that kingdom? What has God given you to be a blessing in that kingdom, right? Have you submitted yourself to certain things, right? And sought the Lord in all your things. It said, and then Daniel remained there until the first year of King Cyrus. So we are going to read more about Daniel tomorrow. So that's where we come to our finale today. If this has been a blessing to you, I want you to like it, share it, subscribe to the channel. I hope this has been a blessing to you. I want you to keep reading. If you have not read, I'd love if you read next time, and meet me tomorrow.